William Barton sat at his table in a posh restaurant with a dance floor. He watched his wife June, who was dancing with the young man who had invited her about 20 minutes ago. June was a very attractive woman, 175 centimeters tall, with dark hair and a slender figure. She was an excellent dancer. The guy she was dancing with at the moment, Brad, danced just as well. He was 39 years younger than her, taller and blonde. William looked at them with some hopelessness. He used his cell phone to record them dancing, if you could call it dancing. William and June were married for 18 years and had two twin daughters, both high school seniors. The couple met in college and got married after graduation, but the marriage might not have taken place. This happened because about 2 months before graduation, William and June went to their friend's birthday party. At that party, June started dancing with that friend, Milan Burton, and she continued to dance with him. The dance became more and more provocative. This went on for over 30 minutes before William left the party. He went straight to his apartment, where he contemplated how to break off the engagement. He had almost thought through everything when he was distracted by a loud knock on the door. He opened the door. Standing in front of him was June, his ex-fiancée, and Milan, his former friend. William slammed the door in front of them and locked it. He could be very fast when required. The knocking continued and June and Milan started screaming. William didn't hear an apology, only statements that nothing special happened. Finally, William came to the door and shouted, "Get out!" Then he went to bed. Of course, he slept poorly, even with headphones playing Beethoven's music. William and June were not living together at the time. She lived in a dormitory, but she often visited his apartment. He collected her clothes and cosmetics by 9 o'clock the next morning. He carefully packed everything into 2 boxes he had left over from his summer job. The boxes stood by the door as he got ready to go for a run. In those days, he called it jogging. June was sleeping in the hallway outside his door. Milan was not around. William stood over June, who had not yet woken up. He didn't know what to do. He was about to step over her when she suddenly woke up. William said, "You need to go. I'm going for a run. It's over between us. Go home." June stood up unsteadily. She said, "I'm sorry for humiliating you. It was wrong." "Well, at least it saved me from making a big mistake. Imagine what complications there would have been if this had happened after our wedding, maybe right at the reception. William, I mean, we just got carried away. Too much cheap wine. I'm sure there will be wine at the reception, too." "William, nothing else happened. I had no intention of sleeping with him." "I believe it, June. You would have spent the entire night having sex, no sleep. You practically started right there on the dance floor." "No, and why didn't you stop it?" "Why would I do this? It showed me what to expect in marriage. So I'm leaving." June started crying. She said, "I love you. Milan just turned me on. It was his birthday, and if you had stayed, I would have taken you here and killed you with sex." "We'll never know. Never. It was very risky on your part. Someone could have been badly hurt. Here are your things. Let Milan help you." "Oh, no, William. Please." William left the door open, stepped through it, and ran down the stairs. He shouted after her, "Leave the key." June was desperate. She closed William's door, leaving her things behind. She wasn't going to give up. On the way to her dorm, she tried to understand what made her humiliate William so openly. After all, that's exactly what she did. He was right there, and so were all their friends. She admitted to herself that she had always been attracted to Milan. It was mutual, and they both knew it. She didn't plan on dirty dancing. But when she started dancing with Milan, she deliberately escalated the sexual nature of the situation. She didn't know what would have happened if William had stayed. But when Milan told her that William had left, she ran after him. Milan followed her. He said, "William left 20 minutes ago. He must have gone to his room. What are you going to do?" She replied, "I have to see him. Damn, what were we doing?" Sex games, leading to real sex. I've always wanted it, and so have you. So, he and I are engaged, and you should be his friend. Yes, but he got you, and I didn't. Let's go to him and try to work things out. Unless, of course, you want to come to me. Idiot. Let's go see him. Maybe you should stay here. No, we both need to apologize. Milan didn't stay outside William's apartment long after the door slammed shut. He tried again to convince June to come to him. This failed, and he left. She fell asleep sitting against the wall in front of the door. William's run took a long time, and when he returned, there was no one in the corridor. It was a relief and a disappointment at the same time. In any case, he will have to meet with Milan on this issue, without a doubt. William took a shower and sat down to think about what to do next. He called home. His mother, Clara Barton, answered the phone. William said, "Hi, Mom. I'm calling off the wedding. June and I are breaking up." Clara was shocked. "Why? She's such a wonderful girl." "Not that great." He explained what happened. Clara said, "I don't understand, William. I know that girl loves you." "I thought she did, Mom, but now she doesn't. She knew what she was doing." "William, let me think about this for a moment before you make a hasty decision." William agreed. They will talk the next day. Clara consulted her husband, Bartholomew, also known as Bart or BB. Bart was a psychologist who worked primarily for local courts, assessing criminals, but Clara trusted him to be rational in this situation and not treat June like a criminal. After she explained to him what happened, he asked, "Was she very drunk?" William says she drank wine but wasn't drunk. He says she knew what she was doing. Bart said, "Well, she was afraid to get married." "What? They've been planning this for almost a year." "But she wants out. Her behavior was designed to break off the engagement. It seems to have worked." "Ah, well, it just can't be that simple. We've seen them together. They're in love. Her parents are divorced. I never knew that much about it, but I'm sure you know. I talked to Joan about it. She said she was infatuated with a man who lived nearby and cheated. Bob kicked her out and divorced her." "And how old was June then?" "Let's see, 12. She stayed with Joan, but she seemed to spend a lot of time with her father too." "And Joan married that man, right?" "Yes, Carl is the man she cheated with. As you know, they recently broke up. So, as I see it, June is afraid of getting married. That guy she danced with is a friend of William's. She probably has feelings for him. She's afraid that if she marries William, she'll cheat with some hot guy. A guy like her mother. Her attraction to this guy only confirmed her fears." Clara said, "What can we do, Bart? They fit together." "I'm not so sure about that, honey." "I'm sure. Is there anything we can do?" "What? I think we can talk to William and try to talk him out of hasty action." The next day, Clara called William and asked permission to come see him. She and Bart took William to dinner. The three got a private booth at a nice local restaurant, and Clara started talking. "William, your father, and I want you to wait a little while before deciding to break off the engagement." "Why?" She showed her true colors. Bart said, "You know her family history, right? Her mom cheated, and it led to a divorce." "So what? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree." William spoke with force. "I think that's exactly what she's afraid of. Did she show any interest in Milan before that night?" "A little. They might have been flirting." Clara said, "Perhaps she is afraid that she cannot be faithful. But William, I believe that she can be faithful." Bart added, "We think her behavior is related to some kind of complicated situation, a mixture of her engagement and her parents' marriage. If you two go to counseling, perhaps the situation can be salvaged." "Why would I take such a risk?" Clara said, "Because you love this girl and she loves you, and because everyone makes mistakes. If counseling doesn't work, at least you tried." William said, "I'll think about it." June and William went to counseling. Big wedding plans were canceled. There was no certainty that the wedding would take place at all. After a few months, William relented. June lured him back into bed, and he accepted her apology and explanation that she was confusing her situation with her mother's. They married in a small ceremony after graduating from college. Only the parents, Sister June, William's older brother, and cousin were present. They used the money they saved from the wedding to travel to the Bahamas for 10 days. They had a great time, and the experience helped William overcome any remaining doubts he had about June. After graduating from college, William took a job at a startup software development company. Low salary at the start, but a share in the company. June compensated for her low salary by working at a real estate agency with a good starting salary. Twins appeared, Sally and Susan. June took a year off with the promise that she could return to the same job. After a year, William agreed to work a lot from home and took on the bulk of the childcare. As it turned out, William was a very good programmer, and June was good at organizing the work of a real estate agency. The family prospered. They lived in a large house in the suburbs of Washington, where the couple raised their daughters. There were no other children. June decided that 2 was enough. William and June made good money. Each of them contributed enough to the joint account to pay for family expenses. The balance was kept in separate investment accounts. It was June's idea, but William quickly agreed. His agreement surprised him. When June suggested this distribution, he felt relieved. One evening, when she was out shopping with a friend, he thought about it, and he came to the conclusion that, even after all this time the girls were 6 years old, he did not completely trust June. Thinking again, he realized that it was because of the Milan incident. Other than that, June showed no signs of being unfaithful, and he was sure she wasn't. But he decided that it would be safer for him to keep his money separate from hers just in case. William and June drew up an agreement to this effect, with the understanding that in the event of a divorce, it would not affect either of their money. William wondered why June wanted this. He decided he didn't care. But he also decided to test June's loyalty from time to time. He trusted her, to some extent, not completely. Therefore, sometimes I carried out random checks. William also examined some of the differences in the marriage. He realized that he was sometimes guilty of being unreasonable, grievances, minor quarrels, and he connected this with the Milan episode, remaining anger and resentment that surfaces from time to time, often returning 100-fold. He decided to make every effort to avoid this in the future, and mostly he succeeded. The marriage continued to exist, no serious problems arose. Random checks continued, but never revealed anything suspicious. However, when the twins entered their final year of school, William felt that both he and June were a little depressed. Although William was the primary parent, June was also actively involved in family life. Only her working hours shifted the main role to William. But since he had a major role, the empty nest should have affected him more. He felt depressed, but June sometimes seemed lost. This sense of impending depression led William to suggest June spend a week in Los Angeles. She was there for a day-long meeting, and he thought they could explore the city after and have a good time. She was hesitant at first, but agreed. William arranged for Clara to come and look after the girls. They flew out on Sunday morning, arrived on Sunday afternoon, had a wonderful dinner at the hotel, and had a wonderful time in bed in the evening. On Monday morning, June went to a meeting, and William hired a guide to show him around Los Angeles. He had a good time. This was a city he didn't know well. He got a feel for the city and then was driven to the rental car. No exploring Los Angeles without a car. He returned to the hotel late in the afternoon and met June for a snack at the bar. She was sitting at a small table with a blond man. She introduced him as Brad Deal. He was from these places and was present at her meeting. The men shook hands and Brad excused himself, saying that he had some business to attend to after the meeting. William asked, "Have you met this guy before?" "No, just for today's meeting. He works at Dould." It was the local company she came from. Her boss entered into a mutual referral agreement with Dould last year. June completed it, and everything worked. Now she needed to renew her contract with Dooled. June and William drank and went up to their room, where they were able to drive each other crazy. Evening sex before dinner. They showered and went to the hotel restaurant, which had an adjoining dance room. After dinner, they went dancing. But after the first 3 dances, they sat down, and then Brad appeared, invited June to dance, and carried her away. At first, they danced normally, but then they continued. The DJ didn't take any breaks. And Brad and June too. Their dance became more and more obscene. They had been dancing for 30 minutes when William took out his phone and began recording the scene on video. He wondered what June was doing. She must have known he would be sensitive to such actions. June wrapped her legs around Brad's hips, and they simulated sex as William turned off the phone and paid the bill. It was 10 o'clock in the evening. He went upstairs and collected his things, travel bag and backpack. He dressed for the journey. The rented Honda Civic was in the hotel garage. He loaded his things, got into his car, and drove east. He drove all night, with the help of coffee bought along the way. He met the dawn in Albuquerque. He rested, drank coffee, and set off again to the east. He rode at a moderate pace, taking no risks, pondering the problems of his marriage. It seemed to him that June was repeating the episode with Milan, but this time she couldn't run after him. He wondered if she slept with Brad, and he discovered that he didn't care. This realization shocked him and made him believe that the marriage was doomed. He assumed she was lying when she said she only knew Brad from meeting her. This was her second trip to Los Angeles. William stopped near Oklahoma City, where he parked in a remote Walmart parking lot and fell asleep. 4 hours later, he woke up. I stretched, jogged across the parking lot, and went to Walmart. There he bought a towel, washed his face in the men's room, bought a bun, and poured coffee into a thermos. He continued on his way. He never turned on the phone during all this time. He sent a message to his daughters that he was fine and that he would return home later. He included some photos from the dance video so they could understand why he left. Then he turned off the phone again. He rode at the same calm pace, continuing to consider his options. Stopped a few times, but only to eat and drink. And pee. He pulled over and parked just south of Roanoke, Virginia. He slept for 4 hours again, found Walmart, and repeated his morning routine. He then drove north on Route 81 and then east on Route 66. He returned home in the late afternoon. Clara's car was parked in the driveway. William entered the house. Clara was watching TV. She looked at him and shouted, "He's home." The daughters ran down the stairs and threw themselves into his arms. He hugged them and held them for a long time. Then he let go to see their tears. "Oh, Dad, oh, Dad." He said, "It's me, it's okay." He laughed. He hugged his mother. When he looked up, June was standing there in her gardening clothes. She seemed to enter the house after hearing the noise. They looked at each other for a long time without saying a word. Clara and the girls also fell silent. Each of them saw the photographs and spoke with June, so they knew what was going on. June said, "I'm sorry." William asked, "For what, exactly?" "For dancing. Disrespect. Nothing else happened. I returned home the next day." William nodded, but he didn't say anything. Clara said, "I picked her up from the airport, William. She took the morning flight to Dulles." William said, "Thank you, Mom, for looking after the girls, and I guess you stayed. Why?" "To well see if I can help." William said, "We'll talk later. I need to take a shower." He went upstairs. Clara turned to the girls and said, "How about we go for a walk?" They got the hint. When William came down again, he was clean and shaved. June was sitting at the table in the kitchen. She was nervous. Hearing William's steps, she tensed. Clara went upstairs. William sat down opposite June. She said, "I thought about it, and I can't say what happened." William asked, "How did the evening end? For you, I mean." "The waiter touched me on the shoulder during a break. He asked if I wanted a table, now that your companion had paid. I looked back. You weren't there. And now the road was open to this guy's bed. I asked how long ago you left. He said it was an hour ago, maybe more. I panicked. I went to our room. What about this guy? He followed me. When I got to the room, he was right behind me. I opened the door and saw that your things were gone. I went to check the bathroom. All your things are gone. And the guy? He was there. He said we could take this chance. He hugged me. What exactly does that mean? I mean, he did more than just hug you on the dance floor. I'm warning you, June, don't lie. June hesitated. She said, I was turned on by this guy, William. He kissed me and I responded. But when he started to pull my panties off, I woke up. I pushed him away. I told him to leave and I opened the door. He left. And you had a lonely night? Well, I tried to call you. Then I went down to the reception and asked about the room. They said that it was paid until the morning. The guy said that you left with your things. I went to check the rental. There was no car. You left with him. You know, June, while I was driving, I was wondering if you slept with this guy, and I realized that I don't care. That's what I'm still thinking. Because when you did it, you knew that it probably would destroy our marriage. I don't want us to break up. I didn't think so. I was. So turned on by him. I'm sorry, but I didn't think about the consequences. There are different levels of thinking. On some level, you wanted to ruin our relationship, June. You need to realize that. Before our trip, we were a little depressed. Maybe you want more than I can offer. No, but perhaps more than we had. Well, I need some distance now. I'll sleep in the guest house. Okay? I was hoping we could ... despite where we sleep. I was hoping for sex. It won't be distant. I'm tempted, but not now. Honestly, I don't think we'll survive this. For example, I think you knew this guy before our trip. June lowered her eyes. She said, okay, I met him last time in Los Angeles. We flirted. That's all. That's why you were hesitant when I suggested a week in Los Angeles. Right? You were going to sleep with this guy. She didn't answer. Well, William, I really wanted to see him. I wasn't going to have, well, consummate sex with him. What does this mean? Just pleasure, dry sex, mutual satisfaction. No need for sarcasm. I'm not sure. Honestly, I probably would have spent the night with him. If you weren't there, I would have cheated. Why? I don't know. Wish. So, I'm not enough for you, like I said. And like I said, your behavior was to let me know that. She began to cry. Maybe, I love you, William. William just looked at her. She got up and went outside. Clara came down about a minute after June left. She was eavesdropping, or eavesdropped from the top stairs. She said, you need to see beyond the pain. Decide what you want for yourself. I want to go back to what we had before this year, but it seems impossible. So next I want to get rid of all the crap she can throw at me. Oh, William, no. She can do this to you because you love her so much. Anyway, I don't believe her when she says she didn't sleep with that guy after I left. I didn't see any calls from her on my phone until this morning. You need to be sure of this, William, before you break off the relationship. Think about the girls. William decided to hire a private investigator from Los Angeles to go to the hotel, talk to the staff, and, if possible, find out what June had been doing before she returned that morning. He did this through a local company he sometimes used. He then moved his belongings to the guest house. June was in the garden. When William finished his work, he went for a run. Clara went outside where June was replanting herbs. She was agile enough to sit on the grass next to June. Clara said, "What's really going on, June?" "I don't know for sure. Maybe he's right when he says I want something different, and I use dancing to get him to do something." "Well, my dear, motives hidden even from the person who is subject to them are not the best place to start thinking. I think you need to decide what you really want for the rest of your life, because you made this moment a turning point. Okay, I've been thinking about all this since I woke up at the hotel, Clara said, and, by the way, was anyone around when you woke up? No, not then. June looked away. Not when I woke up. Oh, June. Oh, June. I couldn't stop it, Clara. I probably would have done it even if William had stayed. So you lied to him. Right now. I think that's it, June. He'll find out. You're burned. June said, I had to lie. Don't tell him, Clara. I should have stayed out of this. Damn. Clara was starting to get angry. I messed up, Clara, just like then, only worse. And then you told me by lying to him. It makes no sense. He is my son. June began to cry again. I don't know what's happening to me. It seems like I can't see ahead. It's like being in a fog. I'm scared. Clara said, we need to help you. There's something bad going on here. Please just hold on until I find someone you can talk to. Okay, I hope I can. Stay away from William today and keep your mouth shut. I'll go to the bedroom to rest. I'll stay there. She got up and left. Her shovel and pruning shears remained on the ground. It seemed to Clara that she was walking as if in a dream. Clara put away her tools. She went outside to talk on the phone. She called her friend Bella Grissom. Bella was a psychiatrist and would know what to do. Clara walked away from the house to talk. She told Bella about the situation, including the incident with Milan many years ago. Bella came to the conclusion that June may be experiencing some kind of manic depressive episode. She said she could meet June the next day. Clara made an appointment for 8 in the morning. For the rest of the day, William and June avoided each other. The daughters helped with this by distracting their father with college applications. They weren't sure if they wanted to go to the same college. William did not sleep well in the guest house. It was a small building of 2 rooms at the back of the property. All the amenities were there. He didn't need them. He needed to think, and he found that thinking clearly was difficult. Eventually, he reconsidered that it didn't matter whether she slept with the guy or not. It mattered. Probably all the meanings. He calmed down after this realization. The next morning, the girls left for school before June came downstairs. Clara went to her home to talk to Bart. William took the day off. He was eating breakfast after a run around 9 in the morning when June came downstairs. Again, they looked at each other in silence. William asked, "Coffee?" "Of course, thank you." She accepted the cup from him. Both drank black coffee. June said, "I couldn't sleep until the morning. That's why I came down so late." Okay, I didn't need an explanation, at least not this one. Your mom said she'd find help for me. I'm just not thinking clearly. I'm confused. No more than me, probably less. I know I don't believe you when you say you didn't sleep with him. June sighed quietly. Why? Why should I believe that, June? Remember, Milan, you were going to sleep with him, and I bet you slept with that Brad guy. Who cares? You said it didn't matter. William got up and went to take a shower in the guest house. It was an abrupt departure. Now he was almost sure that June had been unfaithful. Once he got clean, he started looking for a divorce lawyer. He made an appointment for the next afternoon. He also found information about Brad Deal. Deal was 33 years old, working in Los Angeles, and married with 2 small children. William continued his search and found information about Brenda Deal, a librarian at a suburban school. While he was looking for information about the Deals, William received a call from his local detective, who said that the Los Angeles team had found it. They were somehow able to access the hotel's security camera footage. June and Brad Deal went to her room around 11:30 p.m. Deal left at 4:22 a.m. June left at 6 in the morning, packing her things. William will be able to obtain copies of these records. William was impressed by the efficiency of the Los Angeles detectives. It was 12:30 to 9:30 on the West Coast. They worked quickly. Minutes later, William received the score. He was Not exactly stunning. There was a line item entitled discretionary spending. 2,000 in total. He guessed what these 2,000 were spent on. Then he forgot about it. William found contact information for Brenda Deal and also for Brad Deal. He emailed Brenda Deal saying her husband had sex with his wife on Monday night in Los Angeles. He attached several photographs from the dance and explained that he learned about what happened later. He left a number that she could call if she wanted to talk. Then he forgot about that too. Now he had to consider how to cope with separation and divorce. Meanwhile, June could barely function. She had cereal for breakfast. Then she got dressed, and Clara took her to her appointment with Bella Grissom. It was a 30-minute drive. Clara explained along the way about Bella that she was a psychiatrist and not necessarily a marriage and family therapist. June was impressed by Bella's office comfortable furniture and nice art. She was also impressed by Dr. Grissom, who began to inappropriately probe the state of June's marriage before the dance incident. Then she returned to the episode with Milan. She asks June if she has any similarities other than dirty dancing. I didn't see June. She knew that the episode with Milan was a combination of her desire for him and great uncertainty about the marriage. But the Los Angeles case, she had a successful marriage, even if it was a little strained before the trip to L.A. Bella pointed out that June would definitely have cheated in L.A. if William hadn't come with her. She wanted to know why. June thought again. She said, "I'm not sure. William and I are having sex. It's good. Maybe we've cooled off a little. But last year, when I was in L.A., this guy Brad was turning me on. I was able to leave, resist maybe, but it was close. I thought about him all year, so I had his contact information and sent him an email that I would be at the meeting." Why? There must be a lot of guys who have a crush on you. You could have picked any one of them. Why this guy in L.A.? Probably because it was far away and I thought I could get away with it. No mystery. But William arranged to go with you. That ruined your plan, didn't it? Yes, but Brad was at the meeting and came for me, right before William. I knew I was going deep when I danced, and, for some reason, I kept going. Did you want to leave your marriage? But I don't want to. Really, I think maybe I wanted to sleep with someone else. And you did it? You slept with me? Yes, I know it seems so. Lecherous, but it was right here, and William left. So, did it live up to expectations? Oh yes, it is. She said this with a dreamy look. Bella changed her position. But she didn't ask for details. She asked, "Can you remain faithful now that you've slept with another man?" Damn it, maybe. Well, no, I want more. June suddenly realized this. The thought flashed through her mind that a visit to a psychiatrist would help her understand how depraved she was becoming, just like her mother. So, did you tell William? Do you want a divorce? I love William. I would like an open marriage, but he will never agree to it. Why? He's strict. Oh, I mean, in his views. But also in bed, I suppose, and that won't be enough. No, you know what I really want. I want to find Milan and sleep with him. If he looks good, I should have done that years ago. Oh God, June, have you kept in touch with him? Not really. He's become a big boss, judging by the graduation magazine. Bella said, "Well, June, it looks like you need to have an honest conversation with William. You need to let him know that you're going to look for other men, if that's what you really want." It is, and I need to talk to him. She started crying. The session ended with June in tears. Bella hugged her and quickly led her out of the office, where Clara was waiting. On the way back home, June told Clara about her meeting with Bella. Clara was shocked. She said, "Are you saying you're going to get slutty?" You say it so strangely, but it's a fact. I'm going to change. I won't make it obvious like now. I can be careful. I'll see if he wants me on those terms, but he won't. Clara was silent for a while. Then she said, It's so sad, girls. I won't make it obvious while they're at home. Clara began to cry. Then June too. They sat in the car until they returned to a more or less calm state. Then they entered the house. William was preparing dinner. He returned home early and prepared a gourmet dinner fish stew and salad with homemade bread. He did it because he wanted to have one last nice family dinner. When the women entered the house, William saw that they were upset. But he said, "I have prepared a wonderful dinner. Let's put off all talk until we eat, and also until we digest." It was still the middle of the day. June nodded and went upstairs. Clara said she would have dinner with Bart and left. The girls had to be home from school by 4. He served dinner at 6 o'clock. June and the girls seemed tense as they sat down at the table. William smiled at everyone. He said, "We'll just eat. This dinner will be wonderful." He saw them all relax June first, and dinner was wonderful. The stew was delicately flavored but filling. The bread was the perfect complement. The salad was light and refreshing. Strawberries and blueberries for dessert. The mood gradually became even lighter. There were even laughs about the sisters' supposed rivalry over a guy named Mark with a C. When the fruit was eaten, it was 7:30, and the girls asked William for help with math. June sat in the living room and watched her family. The training session lasted until 9. The girls went upstairs. June looked at William. She was shocked by her determination as she watched William with their children. She said, "Thank you for tonight. You reminded me how much I love you." "I love you too, June. How did your meeting with the psychiatrist go?" She was frank. "How? I realized that, well, I'm needy, that I'm a slut. I realized that I can't fight it, at least not now. So, I'm guessing you hooked up after I left the hotel." "Yes, sorry for the lies. But don't forgive me for the sex." William looked at her intently. "No." "What's your plan? Continue to prostitute yourself?" "Yes, but I can be careful. I mean, if only we could be together until we take them to college." "June, maybe I can forget the story with Brad, although perhaps not. But if you say you intend to pursue relationships with other men, well, then there is one man you can't have." "Will, you could have other women. Carefully. And I don't understand why we can't have sex more often, like when we need it." June was crying now. She said, "Maybe I will do that. Maybe, but not for long." Will looked at her. He said, "You already know who you're going to take to bed next, right?" "Yes. This new employee at work who we met at the picnic." "Right. It seems we have found a common language. He put pressure on me. Now, well, he's going to get me." Will stared at his wife. He said, "June, you need to find a place and leave. If you bring some guy here, I will take action. Drastic measures, June." "I said I'd be careful, Will. I don't want to leave. You know, your sex life is about to go downhill." He laughed. June thought he was crazy. She watched as he went to put away the food. She didn't offer help. After tidying up the kitchen, he went to the guest house without saying a word to her. June went to bed. She tossed and turned, but finally fell asleep. The next morning, June received several calls on her cell phone from Brad in Los Angeles. His wife found out from Will about their romp at the hotel. She had photographs. He was very angry. June thought he was an idiot. He seduced her right in front of her husband. What does he think will happen? She wrote to him about it and added that she was sorry that he was having problems. She was the same. She was thinking about how to carry out her plans and become a slutty bitch. Her first goal, Jerry Blaine, a new employee at work, should be easy for her to achieve. But she had to figure out where they would go and how she would play with her daughters. This was a difficult question. She debated whether to lie or be honest. She was undecided. She would rather they didn't know about her plans. But she may well be out all night and for some time to come. They would have noticed. She left it to ponder. Will took the girls to school, then returned and headed straight to the guest house. He made coffee and thought about his day. He had an appointment with a lawyer in the afternoon. He decided to go for a run and exercise at the IMCA. He returned around noon, took a shower, and drove to the lawyer's office. The lawyer was Bertha Billing. Great name for a lawyer. He hoped Billing wasn't her best skill. It turned out that she was a pretty woman about the same age as Will. They hit it off when he explained his situation. She looked sympathetic. She said, "Your problem is not isolated. Women our age, well, sometimes they go crazy." Yes, is this a trend? This is a thing. Quite common. What do you want to do? I want to break up with her. She has a well-paid job. She has a 401k, and so do I. We practically have separate finances by written agreement. I want a house, and I will buy it, so the girls can stay with me. Will they choose this, or will they choose her as the custodial parent? I believe they will choose me. I didn't talk to them about it, but I will do it tonight. Fine. Let me know. Tomorrow afternoon, I will be able to submit the documents. We will take advantage of adultery and irreconcilable differences that she wants sex outside of marriage. Sounds great. His voice wavered, and he looked down. Miss Billing stood up and patted him on the shoulder. She said, "I know it's not that easy. You've been with her for a long time." "Yes, I thought she was a loving wife, but she's not like that anymore." He sobbed silently. Bertha let him go. Soon he regained his composure. She said, "Where should we serve her?" "I think at home, or when it's ready, call and I'll tell you." That was done. Will drove home depressed. He went straight to the guest house. He had beer. The girls returned home around 4:30. Will entered the house. June was in the kitchen cutting vegetables. Will called the girls into the kitchen. This probably wasn't the best move since June had a knife. But he didn't think about it then. The three of them were sitting around the table, with June standing at the counter. Will said, "Girls, today I agreed on a divorce from your mother. She decided that she needed to have sex with other men. This is not something I can tolerate." He heard June sigh. Susan, the calm daughter, said, "Where are we all going to stay? I don't want to move." June said, "Will, why did you do this so soon? God." Will looked at her like she was completely crazy. "Because you announced to me that you were going to be cruelly unfaithful. What the hell did you expect?" He then turned to the twins. He said, "My lawyer says you can choose which of us will be the primary custodial parent. I will try to save the house. I will keep it." June said, "This is half mine." "Yes, I will ransom you." June was stunned by all of this. It was coming so fast. Sally chimed in. "Mom, you know whose fault this is all. You cheated, not Dad." June looked frightened. She said, "That's true. I love only him. But I have needs, and now one person may not be enough." Susan said, "Orgasms over your family. We see what's going on." She turned to Will. "Where will Mom live? Not here, right?" All three looked at June. She said, "This is my home too." Will said, "But you can't lie around here or bring lovers here for dinner. I warned you about this. You need to find a place for all your fun and games." June said, "Will, can we discuss this without the girls?" "No. Well, maybe someday. Now everything is changing." Susan said, "Dad, why are you sleeping in the guest house? Why not Mom?" All three turned to June. She turned on her heel and walked up the stairs. Will said, "Well, it went very well." The girls giggled. He spent a lot of time assuring them that he was fine and that they would be fine too. Then he took a knife and cut the rest of the vegetables into very small pieces. He prepared the salad and put it in the refrigerator. He looked and saw June getting ready to cook hamburgers. The girls went to their rooms. They needed to discuss everything. Will made some notes in a file on his computer marked "Split." Then he set the table, cooked the burgers, and put the food on the table. He rang the gong to have dinner, wondering who was coming. All three came down within a few minutes. June was crying. They ate in silence for some time. Then Sally asked, "Mommy, who are you going to bring to bed?" June looked at her. "None of your business." Susan said, "Well, we're curious. We saw this guy in Los Angeles. He looked normal. What else do you have?" Will said, "Girls, that's enough." June said, "I want to say that I understand that this all seems very selfish of me to you. This is selfishness. Maybe I'm crazy. Probably not. But I need to do this for a while, and your father won't tolerate this. So." Sally said, continuing, "Where are you going to do your business? In motels? Where?" Will said, "You're welcome, Sally." Sally looked upset. She said, "Okay, but Dad, she ruined our lives just as much as she ruined yours, so be it. As Bruce says, no retreat, no surrender." She stood up, skipping dessert. Susan stayed. She said, "We need to figure out what our life is going to look like, Mom, once you understand it. As for me, the less I see of you, the better. You only remind me of our problems. I hope you understand this." June put her head in her hands. She was shaking. Susan left. Say no more. After a few minutes, June looked at Will, who was cleaning up. She said, "You're not doing it any better, Will." "Not my job, June. Find another place to live, please." The next day, June went looking for an apartment. She also went to work. She made a special trip to Jerry Blaine's table. She sat on him, lifting up her skirt. She said, "I'm looking for an apartment. Do you know anything suitable?" "Why are you looking?" Jerry was a good-looking man, mid-20s, single, blonde, curly hair, and blue eyes. All the women at work wanted to check him out. But as far as June knew, he had not started a relationship with anyone. He, apparently, was trying to achieve only her. "I have a crisis in my marriage because of my promiscuity." She gave him an innocent smile with not so innocent words. Jerry sighed. "I know a place nearby, against me. We can go see lunch, and then I'll take care of you. You don't sound too happy." "I'll be happy. You too." He smiled at her. They agreed to meet at noon. Jerry was both excited and disappointed. Of course, he was excited by the prospect of sex with June, a very married woman. But he was disappointed because, well, he had been trying to get her for a long time. He thought he was making progress. But now she was falling straight into his bed for reasons that probably had nothing to do with his own advances. He shrugged. Not the best way to boost your self-esteem. Some guy got ahead of him. They went to him first. It was a cozy one-room apartment, well kept. As soon as the door closed, June pounced on him. She had time to warm up. Now she was releasing all her passion on this young man. 10 minutes later, she got up, found the shower, and took a quick shower. Jerry joined her, but they were just washing themselves. He gave her a sandwich, and they went to look at the empty apartment across the street. It turned out that this was exactly what June needed. One-room apartment with parking space, nice view from the balcony, partially furnished double bed and folding sofa. Inexpensive. She rented it and got the keys. She drove Jerry to the office and drove home. When she arrived, she began to prepare for the move. She was in tears. She decided that she had to make room as soon as possible. "I called Jerry at work to see if I could spend the night with him. He agreed." She packed a backpack with enough things for the next day. By this time, she heard the girls coming from school. She went downstairs, a little sad again. Will was nowhere to be found. She told the twins, "I'm moving. I have an apartment near my work. I know you two wanted this, not to mention your dad." Susan said, "Yes, we wanted to. Mom, I think you can still save the family. You know, if you give up fornication." Sally nodded. June said, "I don't think this will work. I will still have needs, and your dad will know about it." Susan said, "Isn't there a cure for this? Anti-prodigal pills." This was said half in jest, but not completely. June looked at them. She shook her head. She said, "Remember what Popeye said, 'I am what I am.'" Sally asked, "Will I be the same, Mom? How are you and Grandma? June said, You are what you are. When I was the same age, or a little older, I was already like this. I suppressed it because I was in love. Now it is coming out with renewed vigor, but I don't see it in any of you. It sounds like you have good genes in this regard, or well, at least other genes. Being a harlot is not so unpleasant. Sally didn't see the joke in this. She turned and left. Susan said, What's your new address? Write to me. She went upstairs. She wrote to Will telling him about the move. He replied, Okay, thanks. I'll deal. Will was upset, but tried not to show it. He went into the house, ostensibly to start preparing dinner. He saw June and said, Are you going to have dinner at home? No, I'm leaving. I have a place to stay and a new apartment. Will said, Okay, this makes dinner easier. Should I help you take your things out? June was offended and angry about this. She took her backpack and left the house. Will gave her the middle finger as she walked away. He felt that this was the least he could do. Then he started making pizza for dinner. The next day, June moved her things and bought more furniture for her apartment. They already had extra dishes and cutlery. She had to buy sheets for 2. She took some towels. She never spent the night at home, always at Jerry's. One thing she noticed was that sex with Jerry, as constant as it was, became less intense. For both, she was puzzled by this. He was handsome, young, passionate, but not necessarily experienced. He didn't know her the way Will did. That Friday night, they had formal sex and fell asleep. On Saturday, she was ready to move to a new place. Jerry helped her carry her things. Then she made the bed, and they used it. That time she was delighted. But then he left to see his parents. She slept alone on Saturday night and Sunday night. Meanwhile, Will returned to the house. He and the girls settled into a new routine without June. Sally and Susan, when they were talking privately, decided that it was unfair that their mother had sex and their father did not. They discussed it, but didn't see what to do about it. However, all 3 had a good weekend. On Saturday, they went for a long walk in the hills outside the city. They had dinner at the hotel and went home. Will knew he was distracted, but he continued to fight. He was supposed to return to work on Monday and in June too. She will be served there. Monday morning. Serve her rightfully. On Monday, Will sent the girls away and went to work. Before leaving, he threw the wedding ring into a drawer in the kitchen. Will sold insurance to a franchise agency of which he was a co-owner. The idea came to him when the girls went to school. He still did his programming at home, but the agency now became his main source of income. This allowed him to be home when the girls needed him. Gina Baker had been his partner for 10 years. She was the brains of the partnership and Will was its leader. In addition to the owners, the agency had 5 employees. Out of 7 people, Will was the only guy in the office. When he showed up that Monday, it took the others less than an hour to notice the missing ring. While Will was eating lunch at his desk, Gina burst into his office. She sat down and said, "What's with the ring?" Will was surprised that anyone noticed. Gina was a pleasant-looking woman of 35 years old. She dressed modestly and was definitely married, with 3 children in school. He liked her, and they got along well. He said, "Well, I'm getting a divorce. June will soon be served. Maybe she'll faint." He smiled painfully and hesitantly. This bothered Gina to no end. She said, "What happened? When you left here for Los Angeles, there was no hint." Will explained all this to her. He found that it helped get it all out. Gina said, "You'll be distracted, right?" "Don't know. Maybe, but I can handle it. Everyone will notice the absence of rings. They already noticed, though. All, especially Linda." "What? Linda? Beautiful Linda." "No, you'll see. Oh, you'll see. In any case, we need to consider that in a divorce, June may want to be involved in this matter. I asked my lawyer about this. He said not to worry because you and I had this point when we became partners. June signed it. And besides, she makes good money. We'll be fine. I mean, I will." "Yes, But Will, it's all so sudden. You might get lost for a while. Don't jump into shit until things are settled. Gina, what? Will was puzzled. You are a handsome, pleasant man who makes good money, and you're obviously fit and ready. I give you a personal guarantee that 3 unmarried men will come for you, and this will happen to Linda. I won't be subtle. Maybe I'll warn them for a while. Certainly. Linda, right? Will grinned. Linda was a tall, well-built woman who often dressed somewhat risquely. She was about 20 years old. Will flirted with her a little, but nothing ever went far. Gina looked at him. She said, "Remember what I said, Will." "Fine." Gina said, "Stay here and give me time to calm them down. I mean, inform them." "Fine." Gina went outside and called an impromptu meeting. She said, "I'm sure you've noticed. So he gets divorced. This happened very suddenly, and he needed time to adjust before making any decisions, and I'm here to see that he gets that time." Linda asked, "What time is it?" Gina stared at her. "Just leave me alone for now. We can discuss everything next week." Stella Mason, another single woman with a beautiful body and an ugly face, said, "We won't be the only ones. This girl from the second floor, for example, will attack him as soon as she notices him." Ella Givens, a third single woman, said, "We can't keep him isolated." Gina understood what they meant. She said, "I'll talk to him. I've already talked, but I haven't thought it through completely yet." The meeting broke up. At dinner, 2 married women, Jane White and Ellen Carson, sat together, away from the others. They were good friends, both in their 30s, and their children were in elementary school. In fact, they lived next door to each other. Jane was slender and dark-haired. Ellen was a small, plump blonde. Ellen said, "Jane, Gina actually talked to single women. With those who tried to get him on a permanent basis. She didn't mean us." Jane understood what she said. The 2 of them had a threesome with each other and with the guys from the gym. They were careful because neither of them wanted to ruin their marriage. Their husbands were aware. They each had a threesome once a month to keep them at bay. So as long as there was no overt disrespect, they supported it. The 2 women really enjoyed this sex, even those with husbands. Jane asked, "How would we do this?" Ellen looked at her and said, "So, you want to do this, right?" "Oh, yes, yes." She nodded decisively. He's not a muscle guy from the gym, and he's older than us. But, I think we'd have a really good time." "Me too. How do we deal with this? I can see how we could have a weekend getaway, just the 2 of us. But how do we make an offer? He's not a Boy Scout, but he seems to be a crack shot. He may think of it as saying that we are all deceiving. We can think about it in detail if he is ready for it." Meanwhile, Linda Costello wondered about her boss's new marital status. She flirted with him for 2 years while she worked at the agency. She was single, 28 years old, and very attractive. She had 2 regular boyfriends when she needed sex. She wasn't an easy person to meet guys in bars, but she received regular sex from them, maybe 3 times a week. Both were single. They were about 20 years old. None of them wanted permanence. Just good sex, provided by Linda. But Linda was attracted to Will from the very beginning. She thought he was a nice guy who was probably good at sex too. It's a shame he was taken away. The good guys who were taken were not on her menu. But now they didn't take him anymore, so she wanted to explore. She left work at the same time as Will. She walked faster to catch up with him. She said, "Hi, I know Gina warned you and warned us. But what I want to say is that I'm ready when you're ready, anytime." She gave him a semi-lewd smile as she got to her car. He opened the door for her. He said, "Linda, I'll definitely remember this." He glanced at her legs as she sat down in the seat of the low-slung sports BMW. She noticed, and he noticed her gaze. Another smile. When he parked at the house, he still felt the echoes of his meeting with Linda. In truth, they had been flirting a little for quite some time, and from time to time he had thought of her as a sex object. However, Linda scared Will a little. She was so tall, obviously strong and athletic. He decided that he should consult with Gina again the next day. He understood that a woman like Linda could be easily taken to bed, but she might expect advances. But Gina was right that he was not ready for this yet. Perhaps he was ready for some hot sex. In the end, his supposedly faithful wife got her due. A retaliatory strike would be appropriate. He needed to think things through. June didn't have a very good Monday. At 9 o'clock, a man came and handed her an envelope. She knew what could be there, but her colleagues, except perhaps Jerry, did not know. All eyes were on her as she opened the envelope. Once again, she cursed the open office concept. Inside was a divorce petition alleging infidelity as well as irreconcilable differences based on her assertion that she intended to continue having sexual relations with other men. June worked as an administrative assistant in a real estate agency. She held this position for many years, received a good salary, and was almost indispensable to the agency, without being involved in sales. The agency had 6 agents, including Jerry. The owner and manager was Glenda McDonald. Glenda was 52 years old and very wealthy. She was married, had children who were now living independently, and was divorced from her husband. She was short and curvy, with reddish-brown hair. According to rumors, she was dating 2 men at the same time. Glenda called June into her office when she learned that the documents had been served. The 2 women were not close friends, but they had mutual respect. She said, "So, what's going on with you, June?" June said, "This is a divorce petition. Unexpected, but not entirely." Glenda sighed. "It's you, right? It's all because of you." "Yes. You left for Los Angeles, and I already suspected. Jerry was pestering you a lot. I lost control in Los Angeles, dancing dirty with a guy right in front of Will. Will left, and I slept with this guy. So, not Jerry, right? You know the rule." "Glenda, when I returned from Los Angeles, I went to a therapist. And at this session, I decided that, I need to defend my right to research. And, Jerry was right here. You have to leave him, June. I need a little control here, and if you can handle it, everyone will have sex like rabbits for my time." We kept it a secret. "But now everyone knows you're getting a divorce. Find another man." Glenda was adamant. "Okay, in any case, the excitement factor subsided. I'll tell him tonight." "No, I'll tell him today. When he gets back from Fairfax, no more." "Damn, Glenda. You can find another guy. Damn, you had a good one from the start. You're a fool. But I'm not the one to judge, right? This is true. Can you borrow one of yours?" "We're not that close. Go to the bar. Now get out of here." When Will returned home from work, he found a note saying that the twins would be having dinner at a friend's house and studying for upcoming tests. He sat down with a beer and a ham sandwich. He thought about his situation and decided to make do with his right hand for now if it became necessary. He completely lost faith in female fidelity. Having made this decision, he watched a basketball game and went to bed. The next day at work, Will received a note from Jane White. It said that she and Ellen Carson would like to meet him, both at once, for a little fun break. When it suits him, happy warning day. Will was stunned. Both of these women were married and had children. What the heck? Gina will be next. Then he thought, no, not Gina. I am sure of this. After lunch, he called Gina into his office. He said, "I received a note from Jane. She suggested sex with her and Ellen. For fun." Gina was silent for a long time. Then she said, "I need to talk to them. But with them there wouldn't be any pressure to commit. And, well, both at once." Will said, "I can't. It is not right, and that will create tension in the office." "Not if no one finds out. But of course they can find out. People simply cannot remain silent. As for husbands, they won't be a problem." Will said, "But office rumors, tell them. Tell them now is not the time." He felt like he had let himself down with this answer, but he left it. Gina said, "I understand. Fine." She left. Will seriously thought about the possibility of having two women at once. He had never considered this before. He became interested. Maybe one day, maybe soon. At home, Will made another pizza, a gorgeous one. The girls adored her. They brought their friend Lainey to study, and there was enough pizza for all four of them. Beer is not for girls. Will found himself watching another NBA game. But he doesn't really look. He thinks. It occurred to him that all married women are basically harlots, or perhaps a much larger percentage than he ever imagined, or perhaps he is encountering a statistical anomaly. He decided that this would be a good topic for long-term research. The game got interesting in the fourth quarter and overtime. Lainey left, and the twins went to bed. Will tried to sleep. But the proposal made to him during the day haunted him. He found a solution to the problem. June slept alone in her new bed for the third night in a row. She and Jerry were banned from having sex under threat of dismissal, and June didn't want to go to the bar. Too risky for now. She slept restlessly. This breakup turned out to be more difficult than she expected. The next morning, she decided to find Milan Burton. It turned out that it was not difficult. He was the owner of a food supply company based in Delaware. A little searching revealed that his business was generating millions of dollars every year. She found out that he was twice divorced. A photo from a year ago showed him looking fit, although bald. Over lunch, she called his head office and ended up speaking with a woman who may have been his close assistant. She left a message for Milan asking him to call her, an old university friend. Milan received the message in the afternoon. This worried him. Why did June call? He hadn't spoken to her, since the night he and June had gone out of their way to embarrass him. He knew they eventually got married. It was so long ago. He was always infatuated with June. That's why he was willing to lose his friendship with Will. But nothing came of it. He never fully understood it. Will was a normal guy, average height, smart. But Milan was big and athletic. Women were drawn to him. As it turns out, there are too many women, and he wasn't good at choosing who to stay with. He was lucky that he always had a prenuptial agreement. Otherwise, he would have gone broke. He was always faithful to his two wives, but each of his wives cheated. The first, Joan, lasted 3 years. Marion, his second wife, lasted 5. Since then, he has had relationships with 2 women for sex and some company. Each of them knew his story and that he would never devote himself to them, and they knew everything about each other. In fact, Milan enjoyed spending the night with both of them. He was also able to arrange meetings with various women when he traveled, plus the accidental seduction of a married woman who found herself in his orbit. He liked it when he managed to seduce his wife, who previously considered herself faithful and true. He didn't consider it hypocrisy. His wives cheated. All wives cheat if the right chance arises. He should have looked at it that way. His ego demanded it. He wasn't self-reflective enough to realize it. Milan waited until 7 in the evening to call June. She was at home after work. Well, in my apartment, alone. Milan said, "June, this is Milan. I hope nothing bad happened." "Oh, Milan, I'm so glad you called. You know, I've always wanted to keep in touch. But Will, you know." "How's Will?" "Well, he's divorcing me. My fault, really, not his." "What does it mean?" "I became restless and cheated. Then I realized that I wanted to continue to change. Shocking, I guess. I moved. Well, he and the girls told me to leave." "I'm sorry to hear that, June, but I had this experience. Cheating wife, twice, so I can't say I sympathize with you. Why did you call?" "I wanted some kind of finality with you." "What does this mean, June? All this was so long ago. Do you have children?" "Yes, twins who graduate in June. I meant completeness in the sense that there were unfinished things left between us." Milan sighed. He was disappointed and intrigued. Here is another wife who could not be faithful, but one who clearly wanted him. He said, "Where do you live?" "Fairfax." "Are you free this weekend?" "Yes." I have a house on the bay with a nice boat. I invite you to come on Saturday morning to explore everything. I accept. I'm looking forward to it so much. I'll ask Jody to give you directions. Arrive at 10 in the morning. There will be movement. Milan gave Jody instructions on what to do, including canceling her planned woman for the weekend. June was so excited about this development. She received directions to Milan's house and left early to cross the Bay Bridge. She walked down the east side of the bay and arrived at his house on the shore about 9 in the morning. Early, she parked nearby and looked around. The place was wonderful. She went to a small town and drank coffee. Then it was time, and she pulled into his long driveway. At the end, there was an open gate. June parked next to a modern building with a lot of glass. She saw a man walking down the concrete steps towards her car. When he came closer, she recognized Milan. He looked slim, tall and fit, but bald. She got out of the car, and they came within 10 feet of each other. They didn't say anything at first, just looked at each other. Milan said, "You look great, June." He smiled at her, and he added, "You haven't lost your hair," rubbing his hand over his bald head. June laughed. "You look good, Milan, and you know it." He opened his arms, and she stepped towards him for a hug. She noticed that he had a hard body. She stepped back, and he invited her inside. He said, "We are alone here these days, June. I hope you can cook a little." "Oh, sure. But, well, I'm glad we're alone here, Milan. Over the years, I've thought about you and what could have happened if I had accepted your offer. Sometimes I wished that I would accept. But I have a wonderful family now. Everyone hates me." Milan asked, "What happened?" "This happened to me too, and I always wondered. None of them could fully explain. I'm not bad in bed. Will isn't bad either. But I just wanted something different. Understand? Well, your situation is different from any of mine because so much time has passed. My wives were around for a relatively short time, but you and Will." June smiled at him. "Maybe I'm just more patient. By the way, when I said I wanted someone else, well, you are different. This is a proposal. I assume that's why you called. I'll do my best to rock your world. Take off my clothes." June was only a little surprised by Milan's straightforwardness, and she was delighted with his decisive approach. She kicked off her sandals, unbuttoned her dress, and took it off. She wasn't wearing a bra. She took off her panties. Then she twirled in front of Milan. They had sex. June said, "It was wonderful, Milan. So good." He muttered in response. He liked the sex. He almost always liked sex. In his life, due to his looks and attitude, he had many women. June was just another one. He only really invited her because of unfinished business when Will had the upper hand. Milan's intentions were simple. If June is good in bed, he will let her stay over the weekend. After that, no more meetings. She was his age and had already cheated on Will. It didn't help his self-esteem in the long run. Of course, if she didn't meet his expectations, he would send her earlier and make another call. But she lived up to his expectations. She was still very well-built, very passionate and sexy. They had a great weekend, full of sex. It was not something new for Milan, but June was delighted. So when Milan sat down with her on Sunday night, June was disappointed when he said that this would be their only time together. She said, "Why? I mean, the sex was great." "Yes, June, that's why you're still here. You are good at it. And, in memory of old times, but I have a life and you are part of it. You don't really fit in. So, maybe we can do this again sometime later, maybe next year. But not soon, June." Milan wasn't going to see her again. June saw this. She was disappointed. They had just finished dinner. She said, "Well, we have tonight, right?" "Oh, definitely. We will have some more good memories." And they did it. June sent him an email thanking him, and he responded in kind. However, for some time this was the case. When June returned to her home, she discovered that she was depressed. She went to work and was late. Meanwhile, Milan received Will's email address and sent him a short note thanking him for allowing June to visit him over the weekend. He smiled as he pressed send. Will received a letter from Milan on Monday morning. This made him angry for a minute, but then he thought about it and he didn't care. He did some research on Milan and sent back an email saying that it was over with him and June and that she was left alone. He said he thinks Milan can understand the feeling of being played by his wife. He smiled as he pressed send. Will and the girls began to settle into a new routine now that June was living in a different place. Less than 2 weeks passed, but the girls were able to adapt. Will was less adaptable. He hates sleeping alone. He mourned the loss of his wife, with whom he had lived for so many years. So many good years. But he was a realist and a man who simply dealt with what life gave him. He changed his daily routine somewhat to be able to spend even more time with his daughters. And their family life continued. Will didn't look for women who could satisfy him sexually. He was blown away like that, probably from mild depression, which he hid from the girls. But after about a month, Gina began to worry about Will. She walked into his office early Thursday morning. She said, "Will, we need to talk." Will smiled at this phrase. He said, "What, are we breaking up?" Gina laughed. She said, "You know, Will, if my circumstances had been different, I would have given birth to you a few days after June's mistake. No other woman in the world would have had a chance. But—" Will was surprised and turned on when Gina said this. He looked down so as not to give himself away. But Gina knew him so well. She said, "This little conversation will add some spice to our time in the office, huh?" She looked straight at him and licked her lips. Will groaned. Gina said, "That will never happen, Will, at least not while Bob is around. But you need a sexy break, right?" Will said, "I can handle it." Gina said, "You're hard as a rock under that table, Will, and we both know it. You can't have me. But you know you can get Jane and Ellen, both at the same time." Will said, "They're married." Gina replied, "They're already messing around with the boys' toys from the gym. This is a great couple. I think you will be very pleased, and that's what you need. I can send them to you. Well, I can set them on you. I can do it, no matter what you say." Will shrugged. He was still tense thinking about it. He said, "I don't know, Gina. Anyway, I have girls." Gina said, "They go to nature camp on Saturday morning." "Have you talked to them?" "Yes. Well, they called me. They were worried about you." Will said, "I can cook dinner on Saturday." Gina smiled. She stood up and walked out the door. She gave Jane a thumbs up as she passed her desk. Jane smiled. On Thursday night, Will and the girls ate hamburgers and salad for dinner. They were excited about the outdoor camp trip, which was a field trip for the high school students in the environmental science class they were taking. They won't be here until next Saturday. Susan said, "Dad, you know we talked about you and Gina." He said, "Yes, a bit presumptuous of you, both of you." This is a look at Sally. Sally said, "We are concerned. You're not yourself. You're moping." Will smiled. He sang, "I've got something to mope about," to the tune of "Hello, Sunshine." Both girls stared at him. Susan smiled. She said, "Gina said she'll try to help you." Will said, "Yes, I feel like I'm being manipulated." "Perhaps you need more than simple manipulation." Sally was completely straightforward. These girls were 18 and they weren't innocent. Will said, "And maybe I'll take care of that, young lady." Susan said, "Okay, just try to do it, Dad, so we have nothing to worry about." Will said, "We'll close this topic, ladies." Giggles followed. Will wondered how much detail Gina told them. On Saturday, after the girls left on the school bus, Will cooked lunch. Tuna sandwiches, ham sandwiches, salad. The doorbell rang. Jane and Ellen. Will hesitated before opening the door. But he was already ready. He had no real choice. He opened the door. Jane opened the door all the way and pushed Will back and against the wall. She placed her hands on either side of his face and kissed him. It tasted like oranges. The kiss distracted Will. He didn't hear the door close. He didn't see Ellen on her knees. Jane came up behind them. She said, "Take us to your bedroom. The bed your bitch wife used to sleep on. We'll take it." Will had no desire to resist. Afterwards, he wondered if he had lasted until they reached the bed. When he turned around, Jane was completely naked. Will didn't feel the slightest remorse for breaking his vows in any way. There was no time to regret. The women were ruthless. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the three went downstairs to have lunch. Will, who should have been exhausted, was energized. He was completely naked. Halfway through the meal, he started to get aroused again just watching Jane and Ellen eat their food. The two women had some kind of synergistic magic together. They fed each other pieces of sandwiches and did the same for Will. In the end, the three of them slept a little. On Sunday morning, Ellen woke up first and went to the shower. This woke up two others who joined her. Will was so happy that he chose a large shower. They went upstairs again. Will was exhausted at the end of the day. The women decided to stop. They didn't want to kill him. They went home a little after 5 in the evening. Will ate the remaining ham sandwich and watched the baseball game on TV. His thoughts wandered to the weekend. Perhaps it was the best moment of his life. Well, except for the birth of girls. Maybe. Who would have thought there was a sexy dynamic couple right in his office? So what will office life look like now? Will he still be in charge? Did he ever exist? He decided to let things take their course. He went upstairs to go to bed at 9. He changed the sheets before getting into bed. He laid down those that were on Saturday morning. Someone washed them. In fact, someone washed 2 sets. So Will had clean sheets for the night. He slept very, very well. On Monday morning, Will walked into his office with a springy gait. Jane and Ellen just nodded to him. But the beautiful Linda looked at him, and her face darkened a little. Someone overtook her. He closed the door, and Linda looked around the office. Gina smiled at her. Ellen and Jane did not look at each other at all. The rest of the women were just beginning to arrive. Gina told Linda, "You need to be patient. If you attack him now, you will get it. But only for a short time. And I know you want everything, Linda." Linda nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Gina gave Will a few minutes and entered his office, closing the door. She stood there, just looking at him. He stared back. The looks were not innocent. Gina said, "I see you're in a better mood." "Oh yeah, oh my yes." Will smiled at her. "But Gina, did you know what they were like?" "Some. The guy they took the guy from my gym talked to me about them. They have sympathy, synergy, sexual synergy. At least that's what he said." Will smiled widely. "I'll tell you what they have." He frowned. "I wonder what's wrong with their husbands." Gina said, "Their husbands go bowling on Wednesdays. That's what they say. They return home late, by agreement." Will said, "Maybe I can recover by then." He raised an eyebrow and grinned at her. Gina gave him a long, smoldering look. She was clearly excited by the situation. She turned and ran away. She walked past the others and went to the women's room. Wednesday came and went and came again. Ellen and Jane left at 11. Will had trouble getting out of bed, so he let them leave on their own. Will was very cheerful Thursday morning at work. Linda was annoyed again. But by this time, she was assessing the subtle signs floating around the office and realized that the 2 married bitches had attracted the boss. And when she realized this, she relaxed. They posed no threat. They had no intention of leaving their marriages and children. She was still annoyed. She wasn't easygoing and despised the 2 married bitches in her office. They got theirs from different sources. Linda, much more beautiful, was forced to wait for Will. She didn't plan to go out much at this time. It was so annoying. Gina talked to her. They agreed. Gina walked into Will's office late in the afternoon. She said, "Linda is a good person and beautiful, and I believe that she is sexually capable. Will looked at her. So what? She broke up with her ex-boyfriend. I think you should ask her out on Friday night. Dinner, talk, no sex. Why no sex? She is not easily accessible. You could probably get it, but then, you're trying to bring us together. Gina, she is looking for a long-term relationship. She's 28, and as you know, she is a very good person. God, I want kids. She reminds me of me when I was younger. Understand, I like her. I always flirted with her a little. She's smart, so. Certainly. Before you deal with her, do a test. You know. Fine. You want me to explore a relationship with her. Yes. Gina didn't look so happy. She felt like she was making a sacrifice. God and family. Will said, maybe it's too soon. Talk to her. Make rational decisions. Have you spoken to June? No. The divorce will take some time, depending on whether she resists. Well, see if you and Linda get along, huh? But don't rush. Date. Just like in school, only with more sophistication. So, after work, Will rushed to Linda and invited her to dinner on Friday night. She smiled and agreed. The first date, like in school, went very well. Will took Linda to a nice American restaurant in town. They had a nice lunch and better discussed their situations and experiences. Linda, it turns out, was quite the athlete in college. She played basketball for a pretty good small college team. She was also a member of the dojo, practicing martial arts. She said it gave her confidence. She also said she didn't emphasize this to the guys who took her out because some were scared. She was looking straight at Will when she said this. He said, maybe someday we'll see how good you are at this. Linda smiled. She said, well, I mean, before we can get really serious, this has to happen. But Will, I won't hold back. You might be surprised. Do you have any preparation? Will smiled. No, not as such. What does it mean? I wrestled in high school and college, but then I gave it up. Linda said, you're such an interesting guy, Will. Are you still working on computers? Oh yeah, in my free time I earn some money at home. You do computer stuff at work. Anything else? It turned out that she also did computer work at home, after she visited her dojo. They talked at the table across the desert and beyond. At 11, Will left a big tip and they went outside. Will dropped her off at the house. Before getting out of the car, she kissed Will very warmly. Then she patted his cheek. She whispered, it might work so well. And she left. Will was able to go home and sleep. There were enough incidents on Wednesday for a while. A school bus dropped the girls off on Saturday morning. They had a great time at the camp and told him everything. Then Sally's cell phone rang and she left. When she returned, she looked at Will. She said, it was Gina. You had a date last night. Will said, I did. Susan asked, how did it go? I think everything went well. I like her. She works in my office. Linda. Sally smiled. The tall one, right? To her. She's sexy, Dad, and the young. Be careful, he laughed. My business. In any case, this was the first date. To change the subject a little, have you heard anything from your mother? Sally said, she called on Thursday and wanted to see us this weekend. Will asked, and? Susan said, we had tentatively agreed on Sunday lunch, at Tattles. About. Fine. I don't want you guys to lose touch with her. On the other hand, it's really up to you. I can talk to you if you want. Sally and Susan met June at Tettles, a cafe and lunch spot near her apartment. No need to change clothes. Susan drove the car. June was alarmed. She knew that the twins were very unhappy with her. She wanted to give explanations and reconcile. Some kind of world. Soon the graduation from high school was approaching. All three sat with lattes and sandwiches. June has begun. Girls, I wanted to say that I am to blame for the problems between me and your father. It wasn't something I could control. I mean, total control. Susan said, "What does that even mean, Mom? Are you suddenly overcome with random lust? Does a simple dance turn into a scam? I, for one, don't understand this." June looked down. She said, "I told you that I've always been a victim. I've always had needs. It almost destroyed me and your father before we got married. Did he tell you that?" "Yes, in short." Sally nodded. So, I've been fighting this all this time. Last year in Los Angeles, I almost cheated. This year, well, Dad said you were going to have sex with this guy this year until he decided to go to Los Angeles with you, right? Yes, then it will be a secret. Maybe this will be enough. Sally said, "Mom, what do you expect from this?" June sighed. "I'm not sure. I thought I could handle this. I thought your father might. Take me back. Maybe he will do it. Not if you don't stop. And even if you stop, well, you can always start again." June said, "I'm between a rock and a hard place." She smiled. Sally asked, "Who's having a tough spot between you two right now?" "Nobody. I had a nice weekend with my old college friend, but he's gone." Susan said, "That's enough. How many did you have?" "3. Yes, yes, 3. Her face had a dreamy expression. Susan said, "Well, Mom, I believe Dad has a future. In fact, we think he had a good time the week we were at camp. Without a doubt, this is the tramp Linda. No, not Linda, but he took her with him on Friday. We were told that she wants him. She is very beautiful and approachable. Maybe you should go back and continue playing with Daddy. My game doesn't need his help. We had a good time with him." Notes. Yes, even if he takes me back, I'm not sure of anything. Who was he with last week? I know you know. Sally said, 2 women from his office. We here." June's face darkened. "These married bitches, Jane and Ellen. How could he?" "Why not, Mom? He will have to be tested before we can do that." She stopped when she saw the girls looking at her. She said, "I guess I do too. This is all just talk. He doesn't want me to come back." Sally said, "He can. Why don't you slip up and seduce him?" June looked at her 2 daughters. She was struck by how much they wanted their parents to make peace. This upset her very much because she knew whose fault it was in all this. She started crying. The girls were silent. June said through tears, "I'm so sorry, girls. Sorry for putting you through this. No matter what happens, you will adapt." June's tears stopped, and they eventually talked about their graduation, and also about how they are going to enter a big university. They both received a lot of financial help because of their grades. The 3 went their separate ways, all in slightly better spirits. Linda and Will had 2 more dates. At the end of the 3rd dance at the club, Linda pulled Will into her apartment while they stood at the door. That's how he ended up in her bed and in her. Will was very pleased with sex with Linda, except she was so strong, much stronger than any woman he'd been with before. After the first session, they argued on the bed. First, he pressed her, but she waited a little, and then, when he relaxed, she threw him off the bed and pinned him to the floor. She looked at him. She smiled and said, "So, who's the winner?" He laughed. He said, "No matter who pins who, I will win." When Will returned home on Saturday morning, the girls were waiting for him. Sally said, "I wonder where you could be, Dad." She was grinning. He said, "I had a good time. You should know since you guys and Gina set this up. I insist that despite the great time I spent, I feel manipulated. Now they are more than being manipulated." He looked so serious. The girls were puzzled. Then he started laughing. This made Sally angry, but Susan laughed with him, and Sally gave in too. Susan said, "How much was manipulated?" "Mind your business." "Your well-being is our business, Dad." Susan didn't laugh, but she smiled. Linda was supposed to go to her parents in Connecticut the following weekend. Sally called her mother. At this time, on Thursday evening at 9, June was having sex with a guy from her gym. She discovered that the gym was fertile ground for seduction. She let the call go to voicemail. After about 40 minutes, she listened to the message. Her lover was getting dressed to leave. June put the message on speakerphone. Mom, Linda won't be here this weekend. Susan and I are spending the night at Bella's on Saturday. So, you know, call me back. The lover, Jason, became interested in this message. He was handsome, but also smart. He asked, "Is this about you and your husband?" He smiled at her. "None of your business, study." She smiled back. She really liked this guy. It's a pity that he was only 25. Or, maybe it's not so bad. He said, "You still want him back, right?" June said, "Yes, but I get my rewards for not returning him." He said, "But June, the longer you wait and the more sex you have, the harder it will be to get him back. I think this is no longer possible." Her face became sad. June was overcome with desire for Jason. She said, "Better than everyone else?" "Simply the best, June. I'm serious." She attacked him. She took possession of him for the third time that evening. When she thought about it later, she concluded that her intense desire for Jason did not bode well for the plan to get Will back. Jason was bigger and younger. Let's say she really did win Will. Then he would ask her if she was completely his again. She wouldn't lie. She needed to consider all options, except lies. Lies are excluded. But June followed Jason's advice. On Saturday night, Will was just sitting at home, watching a baseball game, when suddenly the front door opened and June was standing there. She slammed the door and stood looking at her husband. Will was stunned. June looked amazing. She was like a walking wet dream. Her face was the perfect embodiment of passion. June took off her framed dress. She was naked and clearly aroused. She approached Will, who was first shocked and then excited. June said, "Resistance is futile." After they finished, June was still lying on top of Will. Soon she sat down. She looked at him and ran her fingers through his hair. She said, "It was wonderful, Will. I missed you. But I learned a lot while I was away, right?" Will said, "You really learned a lot. I don't know what to say." "Do you still love me, Will?" He hesitated. Then he said, "I will always love you, June." "I love you too." Will finally fell asleep. June lay awake for some time. She considered the evening a huge success, but she knew the hardest part was yet to come. Well, maybe the second most difficult. In the morning, June got up and started preparing breakfast. Will woke up to pleasant smells, especially bacon. As they sat at breakfast, June said, "I'd like to come back, Will. I promise that I will satisfy you well and cook." Will looked at her for a moment. His extremely unfaithful wife. He said, "Are you not going out with other guys anymore?" "No, but I can do it secretly." "It won't work." "Why not, Linda?" "I like Linda. Maybe we won't be together forever. But you'll make a fool of me, but she won't. You know, for every day I date someone, you can do it too." "Open marriage, huh?" "Something like that. You have these two bitches. I've heard about them, Will, from the guys at my gym. Beware of them." "Oh, June, I'll definitely keep them under control. They can't do what I just did." "June, you overestimate yourself. These two together are the best I've ever had. You're gorgeous, now. But..." June became angry and lost control for a moment. She blurted out, "Well, my current lover is better than you. He is the best. Simply the best. Better than everyone else." Will enjoyed it and smiled. June retreated. She said, "No, but he's better than everyone except you." "June, tell the truth. Where am I among your latest conquests? Is it true?" She hesitated. She's okay, vowed not to lie. She said, "I love only you." Evasive. June said, "A lot of guys give me pleasure. You are among them. But the sex I've had since I moved to Los Angeles has been much better than what we had before, and I'm guessing the same is true for your sex since I left. Right, but you're close to the best. Can we still have sex sometimes? She grinned at him. He shrugged. Later in the evening, when he was close to exhaustion, he asked, "If you come back, how often will you need another sex?" "So are we bargaining now? Once a week. Will it be like the Joe Louis Club?" "Huh? Slacker of the Month Club?" "About? No. The guy I'm dating now, you know him. Jason from my gym will probably last quite a while. Because he's so good." "Yes, no lies. He's great. But he has one and you have two. Married, I might add. Jason is single." Will said, "Wednesday evening. I'll have a dynamic duo. You will have a lover." "What about Linda?" "I have an idea that we're almost done. She is looking for a husband. It's not me. She begins to understand this. But I have to let her go slowly, on the weekend." "You're a tough negotiator, kid. But for a while, I agree." "And will you keep your apartment for Wednesdays?" "Probably." June was silent for a while. Then she said, "You have to promise never to sleep with Gina." Will was surprised. He knew Gina wanted him. He wanted her. But it was forbidden. He said, "I promise. She is married." June said, "Shit happens, Will. I hold you to that promise. She's in love with you, and you. Well, in addition, many married women have external affairs. I admit that I have feelings for her. If she weren't married, you'd be a loser. But she's married, and, you know, she's the least likely of all married women to cheat. Why? She has needs like we all do. Will, a long marriage is bound to get into a rut. Being sexually new is exciting, and you're new to her. Plus, she's in love with you." Will said, "She won't do it. I know her." "You knew me about. Well, maybe that was a stupid thing to say." "Yes, I heard you went to Milan. How was it there?" "He was very good. Not like Jason, really. In any case, he only needed this weekend, and that was enough for me, just for old time's sake." This Monday at work, Linda walked into Will's office and sat down. She said, "Will, this weekend I met up with a guy I knew at school. You see, we had sex. I'm sorry. He's my age and—" "Did he propose to you?" "Oh no. He did it once before, but we were too young. Now we are no longer there. He is divorced. So, I want to be honest with both of you. You and I can't meet anymore. For a while, I'm sorry. No need. I enjoyed our dates. But June came home this week." "Understand." She smiled. Will wondered, as he buttoned up his pants, whether all women were easily accessible. Except for Gina. He was confident in her. Gina walked into his office on her lunch break. She said, "Are you done with Linda?" She ran into an old friend from school. "And June came home. We agreed on Wednesday." "Does that include two bitches?" "Yes, this is problem." She gave Will a smoldering look. She said, "I want you so bad I could kill you. And they get you. Not fair." Will was surprised. He said, "You and me, it would be wrong. For us. If we did that, our lives would be ruined." "Right," sadly. She walked around his desk and kissed him passionately. Then she turned and left. She said, "Just so you know, I knew for sure." June is indeed back. The girls were delighted. Their intrigues were crowned with success. At first, they were not told about the agreement regarding external relations. But the absence of both parents on Wednesdays and their contented appearance when they returned home gave clues. One morning at breakfast, Susan asked, "What is this average sex? I don't believe that you are with each other." So, June said, "We have an agreement." Sally said, "I understand." She turned to Will. She said, "Two bitches from the office?" Will nodded. Susan said to June, "And your boyfriend is from the gym, right?" June nodded. Smart. Sally said, really handsome. June smiled. Sally said, it seems like a fluid situation. June said, but very pleasant for both of us. You may have heard us from time to time. Your dad and I met again. In some ways, we're better than we were before my capitulation to lust. Sally said, oh, we hear. We can't help but hear. When we leave for school, are you guys going to do this all over the house? June said, that thought crossed my mind. Will and June took their girls to State University in late August. They rented a van. Their Wednesday pass continued throughout the summer, although Jane and Ellen's husband's bowling league was closed during the summer. They went to a bar and played darts. Their darts team included the same group as their bowling team. 4 men and 4 women. Good-looking women. Compliant women. Everyone is married, really. Will was aware of Jane and Ellen's arrangement with their husbands. Both bowling and darts ended around 9 o'clock. The husbands usually returned home by 2 o'clock in the morning. Jane and Ellen were almost always at home by this time. They didn't want to overwhelm Will, so they left before midnight. They knew that June used it intensively. Now Will has come to terms with having an open marriage. He was ambivalent about it. STD testing was expensive. In general, he preferred monogamy, even if it was monotonous at times. But it wasn't his choice. He had June, and Jane, and Ellen. He talked to June about his feelings while they were driving back from the university. He basically asked her if she was going to be done with foreign affairs soon. She looked at him. She asked, are you yearning for the old days, despite your incredible new sex life? Yes, in general, yes. You could find a woman who would be faithful. Maybe she wouldn't be pretty. But Will, I love you, and I don't want us to break up. Me too. We've been together for so long. We've been through so much. A common past, even if not everything was good, but mostly good. Yes, Will, my relationship with Jason has deepened. He says he's in love with me. Will fell silent, thinking about what he had heard. This was something he didn't expect given the age difference. Finally, he spoke. Why are you talking about this? Are you in love with him? A little. If I were younger, he would be such a temptation. But I will never be able to love him the way I love you. However, now when I exercise on other days, we have coffee together after our workout. We are talking. He's funny and smart, and he thinks logically. He has a woman his age whom he is dating. Is he serious with her? Why are we talking about this? He's serious. Apart from me, he is faithful to her. He ended relationships with all other women. So why are you telling me this? I want to spend a week with him in Greenbrier. Next week. Then he's going to propose to her. Does this mean that after this week everything will end between you? Well, if she accepts the offer, and she will accept, Will. Fine. And after this, will you look for another man for Wednesday? I'll stay home if you leave your bitches, and we can see how it works. While June was at Greenbrier, Will invited Ellen and Jane over from Monday to Friday. They stayed overnight until Friday. On Saturday morning, he was barely alive. When June returned home on Saturday afternoon, she looked fresh. Will carried her things into the house. He asked, how was Greenbrier? She smiled at him. She said, there was a lot of stuff there. Horse riding, tennis, swimming pools, fishing. I didn't see any of this because we hardly left the room. She smiled slyly at him. He said, oh, you didn't have to say that, June. I began to value honesty. This week is one that I will always remember. Sorry. How's it going with your bitches? I'm barely alive. They have real talent. This week is one of those that I will always remember and appreciate, but never want to repeat. June laughed. She said, nonsense. Let's go upstairs. You can think about your bitches, and I can think about Jason. He got excited and followed her. About a week after June returned from Greenbrier, Will was at work when Gina walked into his office. She said, I heard that your Wednesday arrangement is over. What about June? It's also over. We're trying monogamy. Just to see if it could even work. Gina smiled at him. She nodded and left the office. That same day, when Will left the office, Gina was in her place. She looked at his toned ass as he walked out the door. She sighed. She picked up the phone and called June. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.